So since we're refurbishing the studio and it's not fully operational, we don't have the equipment all out and ready with the modern editing stations, we're gonna be doing videos to start off with on our iPhones, iPads, or any sort of point and shoots that we have. Eventually we'll have some higher production value. I'll take any requests on audio visual. If I can't answer it, I'll find someone that will, and we'll make a video on it. I am going to show you how to wrap a cable in this next video. If it's edited choppy, I apologize. Again, it's on the iPhone, and it's gonna be the first set, and it's more about the evolution of the production value. I believe one of the best ways to understand why you should be wrapping cables properly, other than just keeping them nice and neat and keeping them lasting longer, is to understand how a cable is built, the anatomy of a cable. Here's an old guitar cable, doesn't work. And what I usually do is I rebuild them. I solder them. There's my fancy Weller tip. I solder them all and rebuild cables from scratch. So instead of just throwing it in the trash, I usually find where the break point is, usually at the connector. Sometimes it's the actual cable. Here's the cable. It's broken, so I don't know where it's broken. You know what? Give it a few feet. Just because I can. Not ideal. Sliced it. And I'm not sure if you could see in there. This one's actually an instrument cable, so there's not too much to it. You got a cloth wrap, which isn't too often, but you see it in some classic type stuff. Classic microphone cables, especially like old school tube microphones. You have your plastic shielding, and then you have a braided metal shield in between, and then on an instrument cable, the core. So I'm gonna cut back the sheath. There's the braided shield, which we use as your negative or ground. And then in here is gonna be the core, a properly sized wire strippers. You'll have whatever gauge that'll best fit and you can strip easier. I use the regular blade, but then there's your core. So basically positive, negative, or ground. And then of course your plastic shielding to protect the wires. It's metal. So metal, when you bend it back and forth a lot, it's gonna break. So that's usually what happens with cables. When they break, it's one of two things. The connector itself, if it's smashed, you're obviously gonna be able to tell it's broken. A lot of times the soldering is not breaks, and sometimes you just have to resolder it. Other times the actual cable itself breaks from this back and forth of it bending. So when you do that to a cable, or some people like to do the elbow wrap. That's another way. They do an elbow wrap and then they tie them really tight to hold it together like it's rope. And even then, the other times you don't do that with rope anyway, for the exact same reason. Usually when you wrap a cable, you want to use the natural curve in it. Earlier, you want to use the natural curl or turn twist in the cable. It usually comes from the manufacturing, or you can kind of force it to naturally start twisting a certain way. It's metal, it's going to take on a shape that you force it into. But again, you got to keep in mind, you don't want to twist it too much, and you don't want to do some hard bends too often. The cable will let you know how it wants to turn. It's going to make this natural loop. It's usually from it being the manufacturing process of the cable actually being made, the way the cables spool into the cable, as well as when they put it on the spool and it probably sat in storage for months at a time. So it's going to have this natural curl that you want to keep. The cable will not exactly turn the way you're trying to make it go. Sometimes it'll jumble up. You could use your fingers and twist it. And another trick, especially in thicker cables or multi-channel cables, like really big old school copper snakes or SO cable for electrical, is a technique some people call over-under. So I tried a bunch of times with this cable, can't seem to make an over-under. I'm gonna find the cable, I'll make another video where I go with the over-under, and we'll show you how to do that then. In the meantime, I'm just gonna wrap this cable, and if you can see, just kind of naturally does it. I'm not even looking at it because I've been doing this for as long as I can remember. But you just go with the natural coil and do a nice little twist with your fingers, and it's naturally gonna go make a nice little round thing. Plus, you could easily throw it out, and you got a nice straight cable that you can use. Once you're done wrapping the cable, you gotta put it nice and neat. Some people are gonna cringe at me doing this, but I'll show you some other methods, and I'll explain why it's not so good to do it like this. But what I do generally, if I don't have Velcro, which I'll show you in a second, is I just flip it over, go and tuck it in, nice little jump, don't pull too hard, and it keeps it nice and neat. I will show you why you generally don't want to do that. But again, it's preference. I build my own cables, make them from scratch. I keep connectors and everything soldering on hand all the time. So I know some people cringe at this, but I can fix my own and make my own cables. If you don't have that skill or luxury, I'll show you some other simple methods to keep your cables nice and neat.